Well, good morning or good afternoon to everyone, whatever the case may be. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Field Access, Service Force Mobility, and Field Project Time and Equipment Tracking by FieldConnect. This is a special webinar today with Dexter and Cheney and our technology partner, FieldConnect Inc. I'm Andy Holman with Dexter and Cheney, and in just a few moments, I'll turn things over to Rick Hadabaugh with FieldConnect. And apologies, folks, I am getting over a cold this week, so if I pause for a second or I have to take a sip of water, I do apologize. But as folks are still kind of trickling in this morning, I just want to take a few seconds and go over some housekeeping tips. If this is your first time using the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar interface, you will notice a navigation bar on the right-hand side of your screen. This is how you will interact with us during the webinar today. You can see that little orange arrow there. Usually it's an orange arrow. You can expand or hide that navigation bar to your liking, but you also find a number of different options available where you can adjust settings, interact with us, and a whole lot more. Another thing you will notice is that you are muted on the webinar today. We do have a good number of people joining us this morning, and we mute folks just to make sure that everybody's able to hear the presentation, there's no background noise or anything of that nature. However, you can still use that navigation bar in the dialog boxes to raise your hand, ask a question, or make a comment at any point during the webinar today. And speaking of the comment and questions area, if you do have a comment or question during the presentation, go ahead and type it into that question box, and I'll be monitoring those questions from the back end. We'll do our very best to try and address questions during the webinar today. However, if we don't get a chance to do it in the middle of the webinar, we will have a short period of time at the end of the webinar where we will try and address some questions. And if we don't have any, if we're not unable to get to all the questions today, we will be following up with folks the next day or two as well. We are also recording this webinar today, and again, we'll follow up with folks the next day or two to see if you have any additional questions, would like a copy of the recording, etc. So today's webinar is a special webinar for Dexter and Cheney clients, so you probably know a little bit about Dexter and Cheney already. But we are the leading cloud-based construction ERP software provider, and Spectrum is a full suite accounting, business management, project management, equipment management, and of course service management solution that you can access and get work done wherever work takes you. Now, a special note, on January 18th, we're going to be having another webinar exclusive to our clients to cover the wealth of new features available to you in the 1420 service pack. So make sure you sign up for that as well. Now, we also have a number of technology partners which we've engaged with to bring additional functionality to Spectrum and to give our clients even more options. One of these that we've recently partnered with, of course, is FieldConnect. And we've done that to empower the mobile service management workforce. Excuse me, folks. Fully integrated with Spectrum's, FieldConnect's mobile solutions expand work order, dispatch, and service management capabilities from the back office and into the field. In just a couple minutes here, Rick is going to take you through a demo of at least a couple of FieldConnect solutions and functionality for the duration of the webinar today. At Dexter and Cheney, of course, we provide a number of webinars covering a wide range of topics, as well as other educational resources, including white papers, videos, blogs, podcasts, and a whole lot more. You can access these at www.dextercheney.com. With all the housekeeping stuff out of the way and the intros out of the way, let me go ahead and turn things over to Rick Hadabaugh. Rick is with FieldConnect, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what FieldConnect's Field Access and Field Project functionality is all about today. So Rick, let me turn things over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks very much, Andy. So as Andy mentioned, Dexter & Cheney has a number of partners that they work with in different technology areas. We've been partners with Dexter & Cheney on the Spectrum system for a couple years now, a little bit over 2 years. I think we've just come up on our 2-year anniversary. And during that time, we've had the privilege of working with a lot of existing and new Spectrum customers as they were coming on board. FieldConnect's been around since 2002. We started in this business. All we do is mobile workforce automation. We're not in other businesses. We don't have software, manufacturing software or anything like that. We're just focused on mobile workforce automation. I think that's one of the things that were attractive to Dexter Cheney in inviting FieldConnect to become a partner. So while we're focused on this business, we're focused on a set of, at the top of this chart here, it talks about the different roles inside your organization that we provide tools for, including field technicians, service managers, subcontractors and managing subcontractors, dispatchers, some of your salespeople, and your customers, of course, as well as construction field project workers who are out actually building great things. So those different products are shown on the chart here. Another way to look at that is the product categories that are on this chart. So this is what FieldConnect has that interfaces with Spectrum. And I want to take this opportunity to point this out, and I'll be saying it like 19 times as we go through the presentation. How all of our products work is we're directly connected to Spectrum. So there isn't anything that we do where we have to upload files or download files or press a button to do batch updates or wait until a particular time before the information that a technician or someone is entering into FieldConnect is updated back to the Spectrum database. Whenever we write something, so for instance we put a note into a work order, it's being written into the Spectrum database instantaneously. So there's no syncing or batch file exchange or anything like that. When we read something, so a technician wants to look at, for instance, a work order history, or a field project worker wants to look at quantities entered so far, that's being read directly from the Spectrum database as that information is requested. So there's no timing delay here. We're as closely integrated as can be possible with the Spectrum database, and we look to you like just another Spectrum module. So the different products we're going to talk about today is Field Access, which is the second down on that chart there, and it's really intended to work with work orders. So it allows a field worker to enter and view things like how much time has been done on a work order, parts that I'm using, materials I'm using, etc. And I'll show you more detail on this, of course, as we go through the product. And also to complete forms and attachments. These are custom forms that I'll give you a glimpse into in a minute. We're also today going to talk about FieldProject, which is what I'm going to use for my typically a foreman or a supervisor or a crew leader who is on a job where I'm actually out building something, installing a big piece of equipment, or I'm setting up a building even conceivably. I can use FieldProject for that. Some things we're not going to talk about today, but you'll see glimpses of as we go through the product are the Field Dispatch product. And Field Dispatch is a method of creating and assigning, scheduling work orders, and also some supervisory functions that I can use for my field workforce as I'm going through the day. Spectrum has a great dispatch module that's built into the basic product, the service module, and hopefully, or some of you may have that module. So it's great. It does pretty much everything people need to do. We have a different take on it. Some people find it more convenient, easier maybe to use Field Dispatch, but Spectrum does have a great built-in project or a Field Dispatch module that not all ERPs have. So I'll give you your propers on that, Andy. We're also not going to talk about Field Quotes today. Yeah, Field Quotes is a product that is used for small job proposals. So I can actually be out in the field. I can tally up by using my pricing that's in Spectrum, because I'm drawing that again from Spectrum, and get a firm and valid quote put together on the site, on the spot, and have the customer sign off on it. And then assuming I have my approvals to do that as a field technician, I can start work right away on a work order to complete the job. Or I can route it to others inside the organization that can have some oversight into what I'm proposing and approve that. So there's approvals routing built in the Field Quotes. The last thing is the Field Direct module. And this is how FieldConnect actually got started in 2002, was building a customer portal. And at the time, and it still does, give your customers the ability to see status, work order history. I can look at equipment history. I can look at other information about my account meaning your customer can see information about their account on the fly. So we're not going to talk about Field Direct today, but you may see, as I said, glimpses of Field Direct, Field Quotes, and Field Dispatch. And sorry for all the field names. It's sometimes confusing even for us. But we're going to talk today about field access and field project. So let's dive in.
Hey Rick, real quick, I do have a question here. One of the attendees asked if they can see field dispatch a little bit if we can squeeze it in today.
Sure, you know what, that's a good idea. That's a good idea because it makes, so thanks for asking that, because it makes things easier to kind of explain. I'm going to log on to my field dispatch real quick. And I'm going to imitate a user. This is only in the demo system. Customers don't actually have to do that. So what field dispatch does for me, at the bottom line is, gives me the ability to process new work orders. Here's my dispatch board. It looks similar to what you see in the Spectrum dispatch board. So I have views of what's going on in the field. They're all color-coded, so I can tell at a glance that all these green ones here are in progress. So as of this morning, it's 10 o'clock in California, so this is about correct. I've got Dan Wilson has a finished work order, and he's in progress on his next work order. I have all my work orders look pretty good. They're either in progress by the 10 o'clock time, except this one right here is a little bit late, so I can understand what's happening there. This is all based on the technician's changing status and access. We're going to show you field access, which is the technician view in a second. But as they change their status on the work order, it's showing up on my board here. I can also organize my board in different ways. I can organize it by groups. So I have, what, 7 technicians, 8 technicians here. You might have 20 or 100. And obviously this would get pretty crowded and difficult to understand, especially if I looked at another view, like a 5-day view of this data. It'd be difficult to parse this. So how I can manage this in my system is by grouping technicians. So you might have your Raleigh office and your Durham office on 2 different groups, or you might have all your electrical experts in a group and all of your HVAC people in another group, etc. But you get the point here is when I do these different groups, it'll whittle down the number of technicians that I'm displaying so my board is usable. I can also look at different assignment types. So I could say, just show me the orders that are finished, for instance, or just show me the orders that are open. I can also do it by work order type. This is a particular setup that you'll have in your Spectrum system where you'll decide my work order types are commercial service, or my work order types are periodic maintenance, or my work order types are warranty work. So I've got mine set up here with these work order types, including my test work order type. But I could sort and just only display those work order types there. So it's very important to be able to filter. Here's my zones that I have inside the system set up. So if I only want to look at a particular zone, I click on that and apply the filters, and I can get that done. As well as looking at my unassigned orders that I need to drag over and assign to someone. So with the board, I can do, as you would expect, I can take and grab one of these orders and change the time just by dragging it and dropping it, or I could move it to a different technician, same concept. So I have different views of what I'm doing in the board. That's the central piece, and why this module is called Field Dispatch is because I'm going to use this to manage my work crews out here. Here's another take. Some people want to see it this way. I think Spectrum may have it laid out in this chart view. So other views in here, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this since it's just a kind of a highway. I can see a month at a glance. I can see a list out version of all my work orders. I might want to work with it that way. I can look at a supervisory view kind of, which lets me do things like search for work orders that are assigned to particular technicians, and I can roll that up, or particular customers. I can have a supervision view that gives me some more capability to, I want to look at Dan Wilson's orders, for instance. I can update that and just get Dan's orders. So lots of different ways to view things.
Hey Rick,
yeah.
Oh, just a couple quick questions here, and I'll let you move on to the other stuff you're going to talk about today. One question is, can the same tech appear on the same day, same job at different times?
Yes, absolutely. I'll show you how to do that in just a second.
And then the other question is, can you schedule work on non-consecutive days on the board, for example, on Tuesday and then again on Friday?
Yep, same concept, and I'll show you how to do that. Just give me 30 seconds to close off on this, and I will show exactly how to do that.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
So this is the map function. You know, it's kind of neat, and you might say, well, I'm never going to use that, or you might say, this is critical to my business, and we get both kind of impressions here. Here's a map, and I'm going to zoom in, and it shows 2 work orders that I have open right now in this area, so I can get a view of where my work orders are. Now, I'm not located in Seattle, but if I were, and I logged in with my mobile phone here, you'd also see a little truck icon that would show you where your technicians are. It's not like a Fleetmatics truck tracking system or something where I can actually see my technicians driving down the road, but I can get an idea of where they were the last time they changed their status inside the Field Access product. So that gives me another view and some additional capabilities in thinking about when to dispatch and who I'm going to send on these different orders. Let's look at a work order right now that I have coming up, and I'll show you how to do some what we call multiple assignments. So these are each work orders, but work orders don't necessarily have to have just one person assigned to them, and also they don't necessarily have to have work going on in a contiguous basis. So let me go to my work order details here. So this is the work order that I created this morning. It says that my problem is the GFI is tripping in a copy room, and I want to send somebody out there. I've decided to set Brett Boone out there, and you saw from my dispatch calendar, he's the person assigned. But I also might want to assign a helper. So I can do that right here, and I can say help Brett. So this is the assignment that I'm making to another technician. And I'm going to say that is Sharon. We're going to send to help Brett. And I'm going to schedule that at the same time that Brett is scheduled to be down there at 10:30 so they can arrange to be there. And it's going to take about an hour, and I'm going to save that assignment. So now what I have is 2 assignments, 2 different technicians. Now another thing must happen is they're going to fix that, but I want to send somebody out the next day to make sure it works. Since this is a return call, I don't want to have the customer call me back in a week and say that it didn't work out. So I'm going to say go check Brett's work. Okay, and I'm going to assign yet another technician to do that. I'm going to say Jamie Morrill is going to go out. I'm going to send Jamie out tomorrow at 10:30, and this should be quick. So I'm going to say I'm going to do .25, quarter of an hour. So what I've done here is I've scheduled 2 people to go out at the same time in the same day, and then a 3rd person to go out on the following day. So I might do this, for instance, in a small job scenario where I'm going to be working for 3, 4, 5 days on something. I might need an electrician to be out there tomorrow, but I might want it to all roll up in my accounting to that one work order. So that concept's important because I only have one work order here, but I have 3 different assignments. It lets me keep all my accounting, my times on how long it took me to close work orders, separate from the fact that I have 3 different people show up. And I hope that answered your question. Okay. Another thing I might do as a dispatcher is frequently you'll need to communicate with the folks in the field. You may use email to do that. You know, a lot of people do. If I just want to talk to Brett, I might call Brett up, or I might send him a text message. But there's a built-in messaging feature where I can send out groups of messages to people that I want to. I could send it just to Brett if I wanted to. So there's a message going to go out to Brett. It could be an in-app message, a field access message that he'll see in field access when he goes in. You'll see that in a second. Or it could be a text message, or I could send an email message out. So as I said, if I'm going to do this just for Brett, there's probably easier ways to do this. But if I'm going to do it for groups of technicians, I've got just a group there with just a couple people, or I want to send it to Jay and Ichiro, then it's a quick way to get messages out to the field folks. I told you you're going to see glimpses of other products out there. Service requests are, if you're using our customer portal, it's called FieldDirect. A customer can enter in a request for new work, and it will show up under this tab. I'm not going to spend time on that. You may have noticed on the calendar that I had technicians who are out. They're unavailable for one reason or another. So there's a feature here to say the tech's not going to show up or not going to be available for work orders. And when I do that, I get something that looks like, well, I don't have one in here right now. So let's do one real quick. I'm going to say that Sharon is going to be gone today all day, and she has on a vacation day. So if I go back now to my dispatch calendar, we're going to see Sharon's day is kind of X'd out with this vacation. So it alerts me as a dispatcher not to assign something to Sharon. I can still assign something to Sharon if I want to, but it should give me a hint not to do that. Okay? A couple other things before we move on. I showed you a bunch of different views. One thing I can do here if I'm permitted to do it. Another thing you'll see in FieldConnect is there are a lot of configuration choices, and that's versus customizations. What that means by configuration is you have the ability as the owner of FieldConnect software to make changes. Who gets to see what? You can make changes on how what information is displayed to different roles or groups of people. So it's a lot of configuration, and we work with you when we start up so that it looks like what you want your system to look like. So this is an opportunity for me now to view time cards for different people who are out here. I'm looking at Brett Boone's time card, not much so far this week, but it would allow me to add some time or take some other steps to get my time card corrected for Brett Boone if I'm a supervisor. And as I said, from a configuration standpoint, I may have a dispatcher who I really don't want to have to worry about. Time cards might not even show up in that person's log on. Okay. My favorite screen is the customer screen because this is kind of where it all starts. If someone calls me and says, hi, this is Rick at City of Seattle, and I have some questions for you, what I can do is I can pop in here and I'm going to do a search real quick for city. Find the City of Seattle and get a view into past work orders, open work orders, and I can tell my customer right on the phone, here's what's going on with all your work that you're doing for us. I'm going to sort this to get a different view of it. Okay, so I can tell the customer right when I'm on the phone. I see we have an open work order for you today, and if I want to, I can drill into that work order and get details on the things that we're doing. So it's a very fast way to have a conversation with a customer about what's going on with all their open work orders. I can also look at things like history on equipment that's at a particular site, or notes that were previously entered about that site, or attachments like pictures and other things that have gone in here. So what this lets me do is have a meaningful conversation with my customer in order to service perhaps a new work order or just a request. So I'm sure this happens hundreds of times as a customer says, well, this is scheduled for 10, it's 1 minute after 10, when is the person going to be here? Then I can take a look at this history and the rest of it, or they can say, what happened last week when this person was there? I can get all this information. So that's part of the dispatch module where I have that customer section inside here. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get into the field access and field project. Since we are on a limited time basis today, just please keep in mind that we spend all day doing demos for customers and prospective customers. It's a very painless event, so please don't hesitate to give us a call, send an email, and either to your Dexter Cheney account manager or to FieldConnect directly, and we'll do a deeper dive customized to what you'd like to see in these screens. So I'm going to move on. Here's a little section for reports. Spectrum has great reporting come out of it, but here are a couple things that I might want to be looking at on an ongoing basis as a supervisor. Okay? So I'm going to log out of here now and go to kind of a main event as advertised screen. I'm going to log in as a technician, Brett Boone, and I'm going to give you a view of what Brett is going to see when he comes in the morning and is ready to start. He may or may not come in because I don't have to come in and get a piece of paper. I don't necessarily have to come in the office. It's up to you on what your work rules are. But what I have here is a list of Brett's assignments for today. So a couple things to point out is this is organized like you want it to be organized. I have my demo system set up so it only shows orders that for today, and I only show open orders. So I'm not showing any closed orders. So I could have it set up so it could show all of his past orders. I could have it show tomorrow's orders. I'm just only showing today's, but it's very configurable. And if you change your mind later, it's no big deal. It's not like we're customizing software. We go in there and press a button, or you go in there and press a button and change it to make a different view. So another thing to keep in mind is Brett Boone is not carrying around a laptop as he's walking into a building. He's going to be carrying another type of device. So this is going to automatically size depending on the type of device that they're using. So this may look like a what you'd see if I was using a tablet of some kind, an Android tablet or a iPad or whatever. And an important thing about FieldConnect is that we're device agnostic. And what that means is we're made to run on anything that has a web browser. You don't have to have an iPhone. You don't have to have an Android. You don't have to have a laptop. Anything that has a web browser, you can run this on. And that's a very important distinction because what it means is it's associated with a logon. So if I log on from this web browser, I'm on a PC right now. If I go now and I log on to my phone, I'm going to see the same information. It's not downloaded onto a local copy, except when I'm in offline mode, which is a story for later. But it's not downloaded, so I can use multiple devices to get there. I also don't have to worry about having my apps updated. If you were to do an apps update, a native app they call it, then I need to make sure everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. I might need to make sure that everybody's using an Android phone or an iOS phone, depending on the apps. I don't have to worry about any of that. Anything that has a web browser, I can use to get information from. And because it's like that, it all scales too. There's not a separate app for a tablet versus a phone or something. It's going to scale to meet my needs. I can even get it to where it's very, very tiny, like I might have on a standard size, or standard for now anyway, phone. And I'd still be able to use this. So as a sideways view here. Another important thing I want to, well, I'll talk about it in just a second. So let's look at one of these work orders here. I have this work order that is in progress. So I'm going to look at the detail in here. These, by the way, in progress is a status code that's set up in Spectrum. Anytime I do something in Spectrum, like if I wanted to change in process to be on or arrived or working on it or something, as soon as I change that in Spectrum, everything changes in FieldConnect. So I don't have to go back to FieldConnect and say, hey, FieldConnect, I'm going to change this in Spectrum. You need to change this in FieldConnect, because since we're connected and using their database or the Spectrum database, all this is automatically going to flow through, even a change like changing my status. So Brett gets into this work order, and he sees a couple things right away. He sees, well, here's the general assignment description. Here's what I'm being told to do. Here's the work order summary, no electricity and outlet by front desk. I can also get a map if I want to. If I click on here, it is going to open a Google map so I could get directions. And even more importantly, I can look at history. So let's say before I was going to go down there even, I wanted to see what's been happening at this site before. I click on this, and I get a list of work orders that have been done. I've got mine set for the last 90 days. So I can go back and see what's been performed. As a good technician, I know that if there's a problem, the first place to look is the last place that something was done. So in this one, it says, I've got 2 work orders for today in the same site, but the last thing that happened, lighting in front lobby was out in October. Might be related, maybe not, but if I wanted to, I could drill into that work order and see what had happened there. So critically important, especially if I show up at the customer site and I'm not the same person who was there 2 months ago or 3 months ago. This will improve your first-time fix rates because I'll have an idea of what's happened even before I go down there, what's happened in the past, and give me some hints about what the problem could be today. Remember also, since I'm doing this on a tablet, I'm scrolling up and down with my finger. So I can push these things up. You'll notice that there's a kind of a unique user interface, UI, that we have developed here over the time since we've been doing this for a long time. And we believe, and most of our customers believe, that this is by far the most efficient user interface design that's out there for a field technician. This is called an accordion design, and it's called an accordion, as you can guess, because I'm opening different sections. I'm doing this with my finger, and you'll notice as we go through this that I don't have pop-up windows. I don't have a bunch of tabs. I mean, I don't even need these 2 tabs that I have up here. Those are other products I'm going to show you. So I don't have to remember where I just was as a technician. I don't have to go through 4 or 5 successive screens to get to a point where I can enter or look at the data that I want to. Everything's laid out in a nice, neat accordion design, and as I want to put more information in here or look at some more detail, what I'm doing is I'm expanding these accordions. If I was a kind of a neat freak, what I would do is I would go into an accordion, enter in the information, and close it again, but I don't necessarily have to do that. But in the design, we're trying to avoid pop-up windows, we're trying to avoid tabs, we're trying to avoid screen A goes to screen B, to screen C, then D, and then all of a sudden the tech goes, well, how do I get back to B, right? All these things are just laid out in a nice, neat manner. So one of the things that a technician would do if they were working on this now, let's say that I looked at my work order, I decided to go down there, I traveled down there, I arrive on site, I'm going to change my status. Now, I've already changed my status on this work order. Normally it would say something like open, and then I would say arrived. So I'm going to go backwards kind of, and I've arrived. Now you'll notice that my status changed to purple. You saw the dispatch board before. Now if I go back and look at that work order, it's going to be a purple sign, so I can quickly look at my dispatch and find who's arrived on site, who's actually started work, which orders are completed, are they completed on time, have a good view to that. I have an opportunity for lots of notes. So here's a note, an assignment note that was entered by my dispatcher. When the ticket was set up, it says, look at the history on this site, last call, another technician reset the breaker. So it gives me a hint here that it's this breaker's already been reset. I'm not going to just go down there and reset the breaker again and walk away and think that everything's fine. I'm getting a heads up from my helpful staff in the office that it's something more than just that reset. So that's an assignment note. We talked about work orders and assignments, the differences where I can have multiple assignments. I can also have a work order note. So this might be associated with a specific work order. Now remember, I could have multiple people working on this work order. So they each have assignments. That note may have been just for Brett Boone, but I might have another note for a different technician. If I wanted everybody working on the work order to have the note, I would put that as a work order note. So then Brett would see it, Sharon would see it, other people would see it who have assignments on that work order. Same thing with a site note. What I want to do is have my information that I want to stay forever for any calls on that site. I'm going to enter as a site note. So stuff like gate entry codes. Okay, real easy to update. Matter of fact, keep in mind also that this is speech to text. So I don't have to type these things in with my thumbs. I can, if I'm using my phone or a tablet, I can just dictate in what I want this note to say. So what you'll see instantly is if you're using paper work orders or something without this ability, you know, notes may be non-existent or very, very small. But people get the speech to text capability. They tend to put better notes in, and you'll have a better history of what's happening at your sites before, which means more first call closes, which means less time to do a repair order, because there's a good solid audit trail to what's happened here before. So that's the speech to text component. Now we start getting to rubber meets the road area here. One of the big things that I want to collect is, well, how long did it take you to do this order? Typically this will be filled in after I've already done the work, of course, but it's quick to do that. I have a bunch of different capabilities turned off in here. So for instance, I just have only a pay type regular or overtime. I don't have a lot of union roles set up in my demo system right here, but I could have all my union times set up and other special conditions. So to enter time, it's very simple. I say it took me a couple hours to do this. I could have it related to a task inside the system. Let's say that other tasks, for instance. Okay, and I could add that labor. Now you'll notice that there's some other names in here. I'm Brett Boone, but as it happens, I'm set up to be a crew leader. So what that means is I've been given permission to enter time for other people on this work order. So as a crew leader, the office has said, Brett's allowed to enter time for these other folks if they're with him. I may be by myself this time and just enter time for Brett, or I may have Sharon with me, and I want to enter an hour for Sharon also. She was down helping at the beginning of the call. And so I can do that. So I can enter by crew, by individual. If I was there for a long time and I wanted to enter double time or say overtime numbers, I could say that Sharon spent 1 hour overtime. So I start to collect this. Now obviously this is important if you're paying off of work orders. It's also important if I'm trying to keep track of what my costs were. For instance, am I profitable on a maintenance contract? Am I profitable on my work orders? Is that a profitable customer? I want to track all this information, so this gives me the ability to get the right information back in the ERP. And here's one of the 19 times of reminding you that as soon as I pressed that button and said add labor, it's in Spectrum. So there's no waiting, there's no uploading, there's no other buttons to press. I've instantly put it in Spectrum, and the information is available to any of your Spectrum users.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
2 questions here. If you have a break to take a couple questions. One question is there certified payroll reporting, which of course we do have in Spectrum. Does that port over as well?
So yes, and I'll show you that when we get to FieldProject, because I do have that set up in FieldProject where I can do that.
Okay. Another question is, can we assign jobs from the job cost module of Spectrum to the dispatch board? That was another dispatch question we had.
You know what? That's a great idea, and we've been working on it for several weeks now because other people asked us to do that. You can, but there's some kind of holes in it that we're trying to plug up right now. I'd say if you asked me that question 3 weeks from now, I'd be able to show you how that worked, and the answer would be unequivocally yes, but it's not clean right this second.
Okay, so fair answer for that would be in progress on that one.
In progress, yeah.
Another quick question is, how would the system work if the tech was working in an area with no connectivity, i.e., no Wi-Fi or cell service?
Well, what I do in that case is this is my main menu section here. I have the ability to go offline. So let me show you real quick what that looks like. What it's going to do is going to download a selectable number of orders. It could be 15, 20 work orders, depending on your situation, along with forms and other data history and some other things. It's going to download that and eventually download it. It seems like I've got a lot of stuff coming up. Here we go. And I get a screen then that looks functionally the same as if I'm connected. I'm offline right now, and I can go in and I can work on my work orders just like I was when I am connected. I think I was working on this one. So it looks pretty much identical to when I'm connected. One exception is I don't have attachments, because attachments can suck up a lot of memory, so we don't have attachments. But pretty much everything, including history and the ability to change status, is included. Now, of course, the people in Spectrum are not going to see that until I'm back online. So when I get back online, I upload what I've done, and I'm back in sync with Spectrum, and I go back to my online version of the software.
Perfect. So it's as simple as that, basically just syncing back when connectivity is reestablished.
Exactly.
Okay. And then last question I had here, just related to the dispatch board again, is again more of a clarification on whether or not you could do same-day non-contiguous times for the same tech on the dispatch board.
Absolutely. I just create another assignment. So I'd create one assignment for Brett Boone at 10 o'clock, create another assignment for Brett Boone to go out at 3 o'clock, go out to the same site.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's all I have for right now. If we want to, we'll move on to the next part then.
So let's keep moving on this work order. I've got D arrived. This is the one I was working on. So I have entered in some labor here. That's good. I can enter in parts. So this is going to do a search. I don't have any parts in here, but let's see what I have. Let's get some coffee filters on this job. It shows that I have 0 on hand. I've got a default of truck inventory for pulling inventory. I don't have any coffee filters. If I did, it would debit the inventory if you're using the inventory module in Spectrum. So I'm going to say I used one of those, one coffee filter. If I had a part that was not a normal inventory part, let's say I had to go down to the hardware store and get some lag bolts. Lag screws, and I had to get 10 of those because I was putting something up. Unit of measure could be about pounds, or I bought cubic yards of lag screws, but I'm going to do it this way. Again, a selectable item, do I want the technician to enter in the cost? I could also, if I wanted to, have the technician have another box underneath here that said unit price. I could have the technician price this in the field. Commercial accounts, not so important. Residential, pretty important, because I want to be able to show pricing on things. So if I'm doing it in the field off a price book, so I bought 10 of these. Let me add this as a non-stock part. So it's unlimited what I could do with this. I could have this be some special rush charge or something like that, or I could use this section to do that. So if I look in my others, and this is what you have set up in Spectrum, again, because I'm pulling this from Spectrum, and say this is going to be a trip charge, for instance, transportation. And I'm going to add this trip charge to this order. So I'm starting to collect on my cost in time, in money, what's going on out there. Purchase orders, I would suggest that, I'm going to say that there are the ability to request a purchase order. There's the ability to generate a new purchase order number out of Spectrum, although not an official purchase order. There are about 4 or 5 different ways that we can interact with purchase orders out in the field. I would suggest that that's a conversation we have about your specific situation, because people want to do this differently, so this is set up all differently. I've got mine set up where I could send an email back to purchasing requesting specific stuff, like this. It's going to fill this out and send back saying, Rick or Brett Boone wants this pea gravel for this assignment number 1185 against work order 1161. That notification goes back there. Or, if I'm allowed to, I can just generate a new purchase order on the spot. Say I'm buying this stuff, like it or not. Depends on how your purchase orders are set up. So let's keep moving, because we're coming up to the hour. If I was working on specific pieces of equipment down at the job, I did not assign that as part of the work order, but I probably want to do that so I can keep histories if I'm equipment oriented on what was going on with a particular piece of equipment. If I went down there as a technician and found out that I was working on a piece of equipment, I can select that. And now what's going to happen is I'm building up the history on that piece of equipment and associating that with this work order. So later on when I go back down there again, it's going to say, oh, I had a problem with this panel before. If you're using tasks in Spectrum, you'll know what this is about, but this is mirroring the task utility in Spectrum, where I can have a set of tasks, just like it sounds, associated with a work order, and I'm going to ask the technician to pay attention to each of these tasks and say, okay, I did this, or I did that, I did this. Before we move out of this to FieldProject, I wanted to quickly give you some insight into a couple of things that are going on here. One is adding attachments, and this has become very important to many of our customers now, is that I want to take a picture with my phone of work that I've done, or I want to take upload a schematic diagram in the office so the technician can figure out what was going on. I might want to take a photograph of an installation or how I wired something, or a location, or upload a map, a facilities map, etc. back in the office. And I can do that with this function here. The office can do it using Field Dispatch, or the technician can do this in the field, which is very helpful. We have some of our customers that take a minimum, like a roofing company, takes 10, 15, 20 pictures every time they do any kind of work order, because it's the kind of the backbone of their job. So that facility is built in. Lastly, I wanted to show you the ability to do custom forms. I mean, Spectrum is, has hundreds of thousands of different fields, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands of different fields for different ideas, but it can't possibly have everything that you might want to collect. So for instance, I can have a custom form in here that you would develop yourself or have us develop for you for a backflow test assembly. And so this form looks just like a form you might be using now, and it lets me check off boxes, enter amounts. It's pretty high pressure. Enter amounts inside here, and eventually sign off. If I'm a certified tester, I'm going to sign that I tested this, or I could have the customer sign off on a form. But it allows me to collect data. This gets stored in Spectrum back in document library, so that I always can see this form later. It also goes into a little database that FieldConnect has, where I can search on the values here. So I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to save this. Okay, so I've done lots of great stuff as I've done my work. I've entered my labor, my materials, my non-stock parts. I put a trip charge in there. I said I'm working on this piece of equipment. I fill out a form. Let me fill out this form because I know I'm going to have to. Some forms can be made mandatory. This is a mandatory form, so I'm just going to, in the interest of time, just complete this form. I can also make the form have mandatory fields. I've got mine turned off so I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to close this. Come in, FieldConnect. This is not liking this because I didn't complete it. There we go. Now it's completed. I can close it. User error. So I close this now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm finished with all my work. So I can change my status to say that I'm finished with this work order. Okay. I have my system set up so it automatically shows a service report. So this is a report that I could give my customer. My service report shows pricing, although I have 0 in there. My service report attempts to calculate tax. Your service report might not. Every one of our customers has a custom service report because this is what you're going to show the customer. You probably want to have your logo there instead of FieldConnect, for instance, but you also, we have had people who want to put the technician ID code, that want to have all the notes show up. I don't have any notes in there, but I could have notes show up. So this is very custom. At the end of the day, I get the customer to sign off on it. So now I have a record, and the customer has a record, because I can choose to email this to my customer. I'm not going to put spam out there, but normally my customer email would show up automatically. We don't have it in our demo system because we don't want to send fake emails. I can also choose to, remember I did that form, I could choose to include that form and a quick message and save and email that form to my customer. So now I've closed the loop here, and I have a completed work order, and I'm ready to do my next one. Okay, so I'm going to move on from here this is going to take me back to the screen now where I can see other orders that I have. But what I'd like to do is, we have about 10 minutes left, or actually less than that. I want to give you a glimpse into FieldProject. We can do FieldProject quickly. It's very similar to what we just saw. Where's FieldProject? Come in, FieldProject. There we go.
And Rick, we can go a few minutes over too, over the hour if you want to spend a little bit more time on that. Stick around.
Okay. Maybe we'll catch it in the question session. I'll leave it going so we can figure that out. Okay. So similar to what we did in Field Access, I have a very similar design, but this is more oriented towards a project-style worker. So here's, what it might look like if I'm on a phone. I'm a little bit sideways. Or here's what it might look like on an iPad sideways or an iPad standing up. So that same design, using my finger to scroll up and down, I'm going to different sections of this by using the accordion view. This, however, is set up more along the lines of jobs, and specifically and particularly for phased jobs. I'm assigned to only one project, and Gordon is the field worker that I'm set up as. So I'm assigned to one, but if I was assigned to multiple jobs, I could pull that down and say, okay, today I'm working on Cascadia Park East, for instance, but today I'm working on West. I can also say that I'm working on a particular phase of the job, or even if I'm working on this phase, I want to enter some information about a phase. So I could say that I'm going to work on the haul and dump phase, or I could search for a particular phase that's inside here. Now, if I'm looking at this, just like I am with Access, I have the ability to put notes, but this time instead of an assignment and a work order and a site note, I can put notes about the job, the overall job, or the phase that I'm working on. So this is in keeping with how jobs are set up in Spectrum. We're mimicking how Spectrum is set up, so I can get the information back there. And just like with Field Access, as soon as I press the update button, it's back in the Spectrum information log, or its database. So I can do a daily log, like is typically done out in the field for a job. It can be a message type memo. It can be a delay item. It can be whatever I have set up in Spectrum is going to show up here. So if you're set up with these identical items in Spectrum, your screen would be identical. But if yours was different, as soon as we hook that FieldProject to your Spectrum system, that would be there. My environmentals, I'm going to tell you that the environmentals in Southern California today, just to rub it in a little bit. I'm originally from Chicago, so I'm still enjoying the weather here. So I've got an environmental log start to be built up and some notes. I can enter time, and we were talking about before about entering in more detail on the time that I'm entering. I can have it either locked down so that a particular person always has to enter a particular type of time, or I can have this selectable. I've got mine selectable because I'm a crew leader, and I want to be able to select for each crew member how they should be classified for pay here. So I'm going to say I'm going to enter 8 hours straight time for Andrew Gordon. So we're going to say Andrew is the supervisor. I just have one right in there. So we're going to do 8. Then I'm going to say I'm going to enter for Heather. I'm going to enter 8 straight hours of pay type regular, but I'm going to use a wage class labor 2. So obviously what this is going to happen is it's back in Spectrum now. I'm at all my labor as soon as I press the button. There we go. So now I've got 8 hours in for Heather, and it's appropriately, oh, I messed up and put it in for Andrew, but I think you get the idea there, is I'm putting time in to each person based on their classification inside the Spectrum setup. So I want to just go through some of this. It's very similar. I can put in materials requisitions, or ask for more material on my job, or I can say that I used material that was already allocated to the job. So for instance, I'm going to search, I use some gravel. Oh, there's no cost type for that. Let me see if I can find something else with cost type. Yeah, I don't have a cost type in there. But I'm going to say I used 2 tons of material, and I could add that, but I just don't happen to have a cost type in my demo system. Same thing, miscellaneous materials. I have no opportunity to add material cost types for this phase because I'm in this phase here, and when the job was first set up, it didn't allow me to do any cost typing. Okay, so it's just because of the phase that I'm in. Equipment usage. I could search for a piece of equipment that I use. So say I use a dump truck. And there's no cost type, so it's not going to let me do this. I'm going to go back to this so I don't have to keep saying this. I know they have my cost type set up in this phase. But this is now going to allow me to put, to enter materials and equipment as we're just doing. Here's my dump truck. I'm going to say I use this for 4 hours. I'm going to add this equipment, and then I'm capturing costs for that. My quantities entry, quantities entered, that is synonymous with how I'm doing that in Spectrum, is done right here, so I can add additional quantities under the different cost types that I have out there for this phase, because I'm in the haul or cut and haul phase. Forms, just like I had forms for other items back there, I have forms here, so I can do a safety report or whatever kind of form I need on this particular job. And I can do attachments as well and take a picture of the work that I've done. Lastly, what happens is when I'm completed, I can generate a service report. And that might be to get sign-off from my customer's foreman or a site supervisor on stuff that I've done here. So this is going to automatically fill out that I've spent this much, or my project notes, my phase notes, how much labor I expended for this, my materials, all the rest of this, and ask my customer or the site manager from the customer to sign off. Okay. So well and good. And now I'm on to my next job. There's a lot more to this. And I would suggest that give us a call, and we'll be glad to walk you through this in detail as it pertains to your specific job and how you would use this or your specific company. There are a lot of configuration choices here. Do I have do I use equipment, for instance? Some people don't want to track equipment. If I use the dump truck, do I use the quantity entry section? These can be disappeared from the screen so they don't interfere. I want to keep this as simple as possible. So remember, I'm using my finger to scroll up and down here and open these things. And the whole idea here is to make this as easy as possible for the technicians. Did you have some more questions saved up, Andy?
Yeah, we actually have a few questions here. Going back to relating to the inventory and supplies materials, where is that searching from? Where are you pulling the materials from? Is that in from the inventory and Spectrum, or is that how do you do that?
Yeah, it's coming from the inventory and Spectrum.
Okay. And then how do the technicians see the material purchased and be able to edit what he's used or not used? Can he do that?
In FieldProject, so if something was purchased, it's not used until I add it. In Field Access, I'm adding it to the parts section or the materials section. Here, I'm adding it in here that I've actually used. So what we're doing when we enter something in here is we're saying we actually used it. It may be available when I set up the job. I may have set up that I'm going to use 50 tons of sand, but I'm only using 1 ton at a time. And as I use it, I'm putting it in here. That's going to go back to my quantities entries or quantities entry section if I'm using job progress that way.
Okay. Then a couple more questions about time. Does time entry create a payroll time card?
Yeah, great question.
Sure.
Yeah, so great question. So in Field Access, for instance, and technicians, just because a technician says that they spent 900 hours this week on something, you don't want it to generate a paycheck. Yeah. So Spectrum has a process where it there are, I think, 2 approval points for a work order, where a supervisor gets to approve the fact that that time was spent. It ultimately goes to the pre-time module in Spectrum. So before it goes to the payroll section, it goes into pre-time and it has to be approved there also. For jobs, it does something similar where it promotes into payroll, but only after approval by a supervisor in Spectrum.
Yeah, thank you. You actually explained that better than I would have. So, can time be entered for multiple phases on the same screen?
No, and that's something else that we've had some feedback from our customers about doing things that way. So currently, no, but we've had a couple people. Almost everything that you see here in Field Access, I mean, we're not that smart. We didn't invent it. People told us, hey, I need this in order to get my work done, and we went away and we built it. So that's one of those things where we've had a couple requests to do that, and it's highly possible that we end up doing it. But right now, what I would have to do is go in time entry, put in my time for this phase, change to this phase, materials, and I have to put in my time here. So that's a little bit unwieldy. We recognize that, and we're considering changing some of the workflow there.
Okay. Last question here, and then we're going to wrap things up because we are over the time limit here. If your work order is for servicing a piece of equipment that has a barcode scanner, does the software have the ability to link without to that equipment? Did I understand that question?
Yeah. So I think what you're looking for is, can I use my barcode scanner to automatically make a work order or notes about a particular piece of equipment? And right now we don't do that. So there are some questions about how that workflow would operate, but I know that's popular out there right now. Right now we don't do that, but I would invite you to have a discussion on how you want to use that, because maybe we can do that, but in a way, the answer is it depends on how you want to do that.
All right, makes sense.
I'm more comfortable saying no, it doesn't, but no always is qualified, because we release new software every week or 2 weeks with new features in it, and like I said, we didn't invent this stuff. People told us they needed it.
Absolutely. All right, folks, well, we are past the top of the hour. I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. In terms of if you'd like a copy of the recording of the webinar today, please email me. My email address is aholtmann, that's AHOLTMANN @dextercheney.com. Just send me a quick email and I'll make sure that you get a copy of the recording when it does become available. If you have any further questions, feel free to follow up with your account manager here at Dexter & Cheney. Or Rick, do you have a contact information that you want to send out to the folks here as well? They can contact you directly.
Yeah, so it's www.fieldconnect.com, all one word, FieldConnect. We're glad to show you a personalized demo that's meaningful to just the situation that you're in. The Dexter Cheney account managers, we work with them on a daily basis, so if that's easier and you've got a good relationship with Dolores or Terry or someone down there, just tell them you want to talk to us and they'll work that out, or give us a call, visit on the website, send us a letter, flash your flashlight and dots and dashes and saying FieldConnect, we'll figure it out.
All right, so lots of ways to get a hold of us. Again, folks, I do want to thank everybody for joining us today, and for those that stayed a little bit later today, thank you very much. And stay tuned. Again, we have another customer webinar coming up soon. Let me double check the time of that again. That is on January 18th on new features in the 1420 service pack. So again, thanks for everybody for joining us. We'll leave this open just another 30 seconds or so, and then close out the webinar today. So enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Eddie.